Krishna Kaviraj Prabhu. Please join me in welcoming Prabhuji for today's talk. Before we pass it over to Prabhu, a brief introduction and background about Krishna Kaviraj Prabhu. He is an initiated disciple of Srila Prabhupada, along with his wife Purnamasi Mataji. Both of them have served in our Toronto community as well as Ottawa community since 1974. And they've been married for over 40 years. And some of Prabhu's services include going out on the streets in Toronto to perform Harinam Sankirtan, distributing books. He's also a guide and mentor to many of our devotees within our community and across other centers. He also has managerial responsibilities for Iskcon, as he's currently the chairperson for the GBC deputies. We're so happy and fortunate that he will be facilitating today's talk, which is going to be on the topic of being fearless. So please join me once again in welcoming Krishna Kaviraj Prabhu for today's Sunday class.
So we'll start with, many of you know the Jai Radha Madhava prayer. It's quite a simple prayer. We'll start with that. Srila Prabhupada started all his classes with this prayer. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Jaya Gopi such a loud Mridanga sound would come from such a small. Thank you very much. Om Jnanatirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Dena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance. My spiritual master forced to open my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances to my eternal spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada. Many of you were born into families where you knew about Krishna. You heard about Krishna right from the beginning. I was not. And but by the greatest of fortunes, Srila Prabhupada took up the mission of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur to spread Krishna consciousness all over the world. And Srila Prabhupada came to the West and started to encourage people to become devotees of Krishna, and people gradually joined, and I was fortunate enough to be one of them, and I am in complete eternal debt to Srila Prabhupada for his fearlessness in coming to the West. When Srila Prabhupada was in India getting ready to come to the West, he was told by so many people. Sumati Morarji was one of them. She was the owner of the Scindia ship lines, and they had a boat called the Jaladuta, and the conqueror of the water, right? Jaladuta. And Srila Prabhupada was trying to get a ticket to go to the West to fulfill Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's mission, and she was constantly telling Srila Prabhupada, I don't want to give you a ticket because New York and America is such a horrible place. Everybody is eating meat and engaging in all kinds of sinful activity, and you don't want to go there. In the scriptures, in some of the scriptures, it said that you should just, if you're a sadhu, you should just stay in a holy place like Vrindavan. And Srila Prabhupada had a place in Vrindavan at the Radha Damodar temple. I mean, it was a beautiful, peaceful spot. Some devotees would think, why would Srila Prabhupada ever want to leave such a place? Because it was so beautiful. And yet Srila Prabhupada knew that the order of the spiritual master trumps all Vedic knowledge. And Srila Prabhupada received the order from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati to go and teach Krishna consciousness in English to the West, so he knew he had to go. So he had to go back 3 times to Sumati Morarji before she finally said, all right, I will give you a ticket. And Srila Prabhupada got on the Jaladuta. He suffered 2 heart attacks on the trip over. They were early on in the trip, and mostly in the Indian Ocean. It was a little rough, the Indian Ocean was at that time. And then they went through the Suez Canal and through the Mediterranean. And then oftentimes the North Atlantic is very rough. And the captain of the boat said that they had never, ever had as calm a crossing of the Atlantic Ocean as when Srila Prabhupada was on board the Jaladuta. And because Krishna wanted to make sure that Srila Prabhupada got to the West. And thankfully, I just thank Srila Prabhupada over and over and over again for saving me from my darkness of ignorance. So one of the very first books that Srila Prabhupada published, a few small books. He had also translated the first 3 volumes of Srimad Bhagavatam and printed them in English in India before coming to North America. And he had a transcript for the Bhagavad Gita, but very soon after he got here, he lost it. It became lost or stolen. There's a few stories. In fact, I think he got lost one time and then it got stolen another time. But Srila Prabhupada just sat back down and finished this whole transcript of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. And the Bhagavad Gita, we know it's a chapter of the Mahabharata, and it's an exceptional book of spiritual knowledge.
And the verse I've chosen to speak upon today is from the 12th canto, 15th verse. And I will just read through the Sanskrit. Yasman no dvijate loko, lokan no dvijate chaya, harshamarsha bayo dvegair muktoya satchame priya. He by whom no one is put into difficulty, and who is not disturbed by anyone, who is equipoised in happiness and distress, fear and anxiety, is very dear to me. So purport by Srila Prabhupada. A few of a devotee's qualifications are further being described. No one is put into difficulty, anxiety, fearfulness, or dissatisfaction by such a devotee. Since a devotee is kind to everyone, he does not act in such a way as to put others into anxiety. At the same time, if others try to put a devotee into anxiety, he is not disturbed. It is by the grace of the Lord that he is so practiced that he is not disturbed by any outward disturbance. Actually, because a devotee is always engrossed in Krishna consciousness and engaged in devotional service, such material circumstances cannot move him. Generally, a materialistic person becomes very happy when there is something for his sense gratification and his body. But when he sees that others have something for their sense gratification and he has not, he is sorry and envious. When he is expecting some retaliation from an enemy, he is in a state of fear, and when he cannot successfully execute something, he becomes dejected. A devotee who is always transcendental to all these disturbances is very dear to Krishna. So how many people here can say that they are equipoised in happiness and distress, fear and anxiety? I know I'm not there. There's still, things in my life that cause some fear and anxiety. And of course, fear, Srila Prabhupada says somewhere else, arises from worry of something that will happen in the future, right? We're all thinking that there's some horrible monster in the future that's going to gobble us up. And whether it be losing a job or getting very sickly ill or, growing old or having dementia. As I'm getting older, I'm starting to think that that's a problem that, I could face in a few days. And so you never know what's coming. My wife had a stroke. Some of you know Purnamasi. She often has the wheelchair here. And, there was just one day she was fine. We were getting ready to actually go to a festival in West Virginia with all the devotees. And she suddenly started to feel a little strange in her leg, and then she said she felt it up in her hip, and then her elbow, and then her ear. And I'm a respiratory therapist, worked in the hospital for a long time. And these are not typical symptoms of a stroke, but I knew right away she was having a stroke. And we just got in the car, and I drove her to the hospital. And the doctor did what he could, but unfortunately we didn't, things just didn't turn out that where some people, get a certain drug and they recover. Of course, it's all karma, whether you recover from it or you don't recover from it. But anyway, she ended up paralyzed on one side, but she's so thankful that she can still talk, because Purnamasi loves to talk. And she just felt that if she lost her ability to talk, that would have been the worst hell ever. So she was fearful, when all this was going on, and we were fearful of what might happen in the future. But then we suddenly started to realize, what? This is what we signed on for as devotees. We realize every day we're reading Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, and what is What are the great sages in the Bhagavatam saying, and what is Krishna saying in the Bhagavad Gita? They're saying that we're not this body. That's an essential realization to have in order to become fearless of the future. Because if you are spirit, you are actually outside of the realm of time. But because we are spirits and we are attached by the ahankar, the false ego, because we are attached to the material body, therefore we are thinking we are under the influence of time, and all these horrible things that can happen in the material world are going to happen to me. We think, oh no, it's going to happen to me. I'm going to grow old and die. I don't want to. What can I do? At least you've all come to the right place to find out what you can do. Because I don't think there's anywhere else in Toronto where there's a bunch of people sitting down being told that they are not this body, that they are spirit soul. Right? I mean, there's many religions out there, but many of them, I was brought up in one of them. I was brought up Roman Catholic. I never understood that I was a spirit soul and not this body. And yet, you know, it's one of the major religions of the world, and it doesn't even teach you the ABCs of religiosity. I mean, it basically says, yes, Jesus said, know, love, and serve God with your whole heart, mind, and soul, and love your neighbor as yourself. But that's as far as they take it. It's just like being good to everybody, right? And this verse is talking about being good to everybody, but what is that goodness based on? This goodness is not based on just some emotion that, oh, you know, you're a fellow human being and so therefore I must help you, like that. No. It's based on spiritual realization. And when one is fully self-realized as a spirit soul, and we can achieve that, but when one comes to that platform, then one actually does become free from happiness. I mean, who is disturbed by happiness? Is anybody here disturbed by happiness? Probably not, right? As soon as you get something that makes you happy, you're like, I'm happy, I'm not disturbed, I'm feeling good. But that's actually a disturbance. Because you're thinking that that is true happiness. But the true happiness that the soul, Jivera Swarupoi Krishnera Nityadas, the soul is the eternal servant of Krishna. And if we are thinking that happiness comes from any interaction of material objects with our senses, then we're just fooling ourselves. We're really hurting ourselves. Because what's happening is we're setting ourselves up to be disturbed. If you are not disturbed by happiness, then I guarantee you will be disturbed. I mean, if you don't feel that you're disturbed by happiness, you know, you're just thinking, oh, I'm happy, but you're enjoying that happiness, I can guarantee you will then experience the suffering of the material world, because that's the nature of the material world. It's a dual nature, happiness and distress, right? And that is coming to everybody. Everybody in this world is either in a state of happiness or in a state of distress. But if you come to the spiritual platform and realize our eternal spiritual selves, then you can become free from that duality going up and down. I can remember when I was just becoming a devotee, I actually remember going home one night and I had a diary, and I wrote in the diary, and you know, here's the x-axis and here's the y-axis. And I was thinking that I'd actually previously written about how life is just like a sine wave. It kind of just goes up and down, up and down. You know, sometimes there's a lot of happiness and a lot of distress, and sometimes a little happiness, a little distress. But it just keeps going up and down, and there's kind of a base, you know, that just keeps going on until you die. And that's life. And then when I met the devotees, and they started telling me that if you come to this platform of spiritual realization, the happiness that you get starts to increase, and it increases exponentially. And it just keeps increasing. And when you chant Hare Krishna, I know many of you were here for the kirtan. When we chant together Hare Krishna, we get a little bit of a taste of that rasa of the taste with Krishna, of being with Krishna, because Krishna is present in his holy name. We don't realize it all the time, but we need to come to a point where we do realize it all the time, and that we are Krishna's eternal servant. And if we develop that consciousness on an everyday basis, then we can actually walk through the world without being subjected to the ups and the downs, and we can actually start to increase our happiness, and that happiness will keep going up regardless of what happens materially. Whether you're poisoned or shot or lose your job or lose your wife or husband or whatever, the material world just throws so many things in the works, right? It just is constantly sending us some pain in some way. But if you actually become spiritually realized, you can end up having this ever-increasing spiritual happiness. And all the things of the material world don't matter. Many of you probably know the story of Prahlad Maharaj. He was the son of a great demon. And that demon, Hiranyakashipu, he was totally against God. He was a total materialist. He said, there is no God, and I don't care about it. And the whole point of material life is just enjoying the material world. And so he's really thinking that the ride on the roller coaster is the way to go. But he even, got the benediction. He practiced severe austerities and got the benediction that he asked Lord Brahma, can I get immortality? And Lord Brahma said, well, I'm not immortal, so I can't give you immortality. But I can, give you some other things, and I can make sure that you don't get killed on the land or in the sky. And then what else would you like? And he said, well, I don't want to be killed inside a house or outside a house. I don't want to be killed by any man or beast. And I don't want to be killed by any weapon. And he thought he was making all these deals with Lord Brahma, right? And he thought, okay, I've got it sealed. I'm going to live forever because nothing's going to kill me. And little did he know that Krishna had other plans. That's a common joke. It's like, how do you make God laugh? You tell him your plans. Exactly. As soon as you plan something, Krishna has another plan. Just like we were planning to go to New Vrindavan, and Purnamasi ends up with a stroke and we didn't go. But, this is the way material nature works. So, Prahlad Maharaj, just think, he's a little boy, 5 years old, and his father is completely rejecting him because he's a devotee of God, and his father is a complete demon. So his father is completely rejecting him. And we know that people who grow up without good parents end up having a lot of difficulty later in life. And yet Prahlad Maharaj was taking it all in stride. Why? Because he had pure and perfect spiritual knowledge. I don't know how many of you have Srimad Bhagavatam at home, but if you don't, you should. We've been selling them a lot here at the temple. You can get them at the front desk. And having Srimad Bhagavatam at home gives you that knowledge. And especially in the 7th canto, where it talks about Prahlad Maharaj. Prahlad Maharaj was in his mother's womb, and the demigods were thinking, he's the son of Hiranyakashipu, so he's going to be a great demon also, so we should kill him. And so they were coming to kill Prahlad in the womb. And Narada Muni arrived on the scene and said, whoa, no, wait. He's actually a great devotee. Don't be killing him. And then Narada Muni stuck around and gave Prahlad Maharaj so much instruction on Vedic wisdom that he came out of the womb fully cognizant of who he was spiritually. The goal that we all want. He was there as soon as he was born. And as soon as he could talk, he was just telling everybody, surrender to Krishna, become a devotee of Krishna. And when he went to school and he was telling all his schoolmates, you've got to become a devotee of Krishna. And he did it fearlessly. Even though the teachers were demons and they started, Prahlad, you can't be saying these things in class, and he would just keep on, you know what, I'm a spirit soul, you can't do anything to me. Even if you killed his body, it doesn't do anything to me. Just like Socrates, I believe it was Socrates, when they came to arrest him, they said, we are going to arrest you and put you in jail. And he said, if you can find me, you can arrest me. It was like, he said, he was basically saying, I'm spirit, I am not this body. You can put my body in a jail, but you can't arrest my spirit. So nothing can happen spiritually. So Prahlad Maharaj knew that, and he just kept preaching to his friends, and his father kept doing so many horrible things. I mean, just imagine a father he took his son and he threw him under an elephant, and he was wanting the elephant to stomp on Prahlad Maharaj. And the elephant just said, the elephant was cognizant enough, and Krishna came to him in his heart and just said, no, don't step on him, he's a devotee. And that frustrated Hiranyakashipu. And then Hiranyakashipu said, okay, I'm going to throw him off a cliff. And so he took Prahlad Maharaj and they went up to a very high cliff, and he threw him off the cliff. And Prahlad Maharaj had no fear. He just knew that Krishna would take care of him. And Krishna came and caught him and allowed him to land softly and not be hurt at all. And then Hiranyakashipu said, okay, he has to eat, so we'll poison what he's eating. And so they put poison in his food. And so, of course, being a devotee, Prahlad Maharaj would offer everything that he would eat. Just as we offer everything that we're about to take the Sunday feast, it's all been offered to Krishna on the altar. So Prahlad Maharaj offered a prayer saying, dear Krishna, please accept this boga and take it, and then I will take it as your prasadam. And because of that, the prasadam came back completely purified, and it didn't poison Prahlad Maharaj at all. So by being a great devotee of Krishna, Prahlad Maharaj was completely taken care of by Krishna. And so each and every one of us, if we start to chant Hare Krishna on a daily basis, like I really encourage you all to, even if you just wake up in the morning and even once you say Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. I guarantee your life will start to get better. I can guarantee it. Krishna will start to take care of you because you're taking a step towards Krishna. And it's described in the scriptures that if you take one step towards Krishna, he takes 1,000 steps towards you. So if you even say the holy name once, Krishna will come running. And he will say, here's my devotee. I'm going to help him become more of a devotee. And we should all be praying for that opportunity to become a devotee of Krishna. So, because when we do become a devotee of Krishna, we can become free from this happiness and distress, this fear of what's going to happen in the future, because we're spiritual. Doesn't matter. Whatever happens doesn't matter. I'm a total spirit soul. I'm completely beyond that. And anxiety, anxiety is also about worrying about what's happening in the future. And people get anxiety attacks and so many things. And I mean, all you have to do is pick up a newspaper these days and it just fills you with anxiety. And people are thinking, how am I going to cope? How is the world going to cope? People are killing each other. People are starving everywhere and the world's going to hell. What's going? But if you chant Hare Krishna, you actually become part of the solution. The United Nations think that they have a solution for the world's problems. If we all become united. And how well has that worked over the years? Not very, right? And it never will, because they don't understand that the real common thread amongst all of us is that we are spirit souls. We're not Indian, we're not American, we're not Russian, we're not Ukrainian, we're not Jewish, we're not Palestinian, we're not African, we're not Chinese. We're none of those things. We are all spirit soul. And when we start to realize that we are more spirit soul, then we will start interacting with people like that, and they will also become influenced to start to think, how is this person so nice? And yet everybody else is, no, sometimes they're nice, sometimes not so nice. But this devotee, they're always nice. At least we should be. maybe we're still working on it a bit. But we should be trying to come to that spiritual platform where we are treating everybody, like Prabhupada, Krishna says, when no one is put into difficulty and no one is disturbed by a devotee. That's the way we should walk in the material world. We should not put anybody into difficulty or anybody into disturbance in any way. And we shouldn't put them in any anxiety. We should just be concerned for their eternal spiritual welfare. And so that is why I feel very grateful to Srila Prabhupada that I got the opportunity to meet some devotees and to become a devotee of Krishna. And I'm still trying to become a much better devotee of Krishna, or at least even a devotee of Krishna. And I'm just really wanting to implore upon you all that if you become devoted to Krishna, there is nothing that you will hanker for. There is no loss or diminution. Krishna says that in the Bhagavad Gita also. On this path there is no loss or diminution. You will not lose anything, and you will gain so much. The spiritual awareness, being totally spiritual aware, can free you from all pain and all anxiety. So please, take to this chanting. And all together, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So I thank you, and I hope to see all your smiling faces here again in the not too distant future. And now I think it's time for announcements.
Can you take some questions, Prabhu?
Sure, yeah, sure, if there's any questions.
If anyone wants to raise your hand, we'll just take quick 2 questions. Show of hands, we'll be happy to pass the microphone over to you. Questions?
No questions?
Going once.
So everybody's going to go home and start chanting, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Let's show our appreciation for Thank you so much once again, Prabhu, for taking the time and being here this evening at Iskcon Toronto. Hare Krishna. Would like to quickly go over some of the announcements for today. Would like to remind everyone that we have a Gita contest organized by the Krishna Fund School that's scheduled to take place